Is our American banking system failing? Do we need to take our money out of the bank? Before you run to your bank to make a huge withdrawal, I'm going to get into the Silicon Valley situation and what this means for people like you and me. Hello, beautiful people from across the lands. It is your girl, Tashana Nicole. Join me on my journey to financial independence by eliminating debt, creating multiple streams of income, and inspiring others to dream again. Hello, if you are new here. Welcome back to my hopeful peeps for returning. I am so ready to get into today's video about the whole Silicon Valley bank collapse situation, what this means, what actually happened, and most importantly, what we can learn from it. If you have been living under a rock, there has been a huge bank collapse situation happening with the 16th largest bank in America, and I'm going to get into the weeds of what happened with the situation and if you and I should be concerned. Bangs is looking a little weird here. Let me fix this. Okay. All right, I have my research here. There are a lot of terms and concepts that we're going to get into today to break down this situation. So I'm going to apologize because my eye contact is not going to be the best in this video. I want to make sure that I'm sharing this information as accurately and just very basic way so we all can understand, because I had to really go through this information with a fine-tooth comb to make sure that I actually understood it. So I want to share from what I gathered and my perception of this whole thing on whether or not you regular people like us should be concerned on what happened with Silicon Valley. So first, let's get into exactly that. What happened? So Silicon Valley is the 16th largest bank in the US, but they were the second largest bank to collapse. The first largest bank to collapse was back in 2008, a bank known as Washington Mutual. So I want to highlight a very important point that I feel like we all need to understand with Silicon Valley. 90% of its customer base were tech companies and venture capitalists. I want you to say that out loud with me. 90% of their customer base were tech companies and venture capitalists. And before I even began to research this stuff, I've never heard of a venture capitalist. So I'm going to make sure I share the definition down here at my screen so we're all on the same page. But in a gist, it's basically an venture capitalist is a private investor who provide capital into startups in exchange for equity or ownership in the company. So these are people who have the money and resources to invest in other companies that they believe is going to eventually yield a high return. So these are the type of customers that bank with Silicon Valley. Some of the tech companies that banked with Silicon Valley were companies like Pinterest, Etsy, Roku, Roblox. Some of these companies you may have heard of, but these were the customers that represented Silicon Valley's customer base, or depositors, if you will. So what happened was Silicon Valley had decided to invest in what is called Treasury bonds. Traditionally, this is supposed to be considered safe, but given the current climate of the economy right now, interest rates has gone up, impacting the investment with the Treasury bonds that Silicon Valley decided to use its depositors' money in investing. And this is not abnormal. This is a common practice with banks. They take our money, put it into different investment things to make more money from it, so they're able to offer loans and interest rates and all of their products and services through their banking system. That's how they run their business. Silicon Valley particularly invested a lot of money into Treasury bonds, and when the interest rates were going up by the Federal Reserve, which I will put a definition down below of who they are, that impacted their investments and they began to see a significant loss. This was a loss of $1.8 billion. So Silicon Valley tried to raise money to make up for the loss. And when the depositors / their customer base got whiff of this, they was like, oh no, run me my money. I don't know what y'all doing, but y'all doing something funny and I want my money. So this caused what is called a bank run. And I'm going to include the definition down here as well. So remember, 90% of their customer base were who? Tech companies and venture capitalists. So they all came coming to the bank like, I need my money up out of here. I don't know what y'all got going on, but this is too risky for me. I got to go. And they're like, We don't got it because there were so many people coming at one time. They didn't have enough funds or the money available to give their depositors their money back. And who was watching all of this nonsense go on? The FDIC. And we're going to include at the bottom who they are. As they were watching this going on, they decided to step in. So the FDIC, or the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, stepped in to help protect the depositors or the customers there. Now, usually your bank double check to see if your bank are FDIC insured, but what that basically means is that your money is protected up to $250,000. Now, for the everyday person like you and I don't know about y'all, but that's way more than enough money to protect my $5.23. Okay, so if my bank was to have a situation like this to collapse, my money would be just fine. But again, 90% of their customer base were tech companies and venture capitalists, and they had way much more money than $250,000 in there, so that wasn't going to suffice. I do find it very ironic and kind of shady that the CEO, Greg Becker, sold 3.6 million shares of SVB 2 weeks before the collapse. So he was like, gotta go. 2 weeks before the collapse. So to me, that just was a little shady and kind of, I'm side-eyeing like, hold on, somebody do something before this disaster happened. And the crazy thing is, when these depositors came and caused this bank run, it caused the SVB to collapse within 24 hours, or it was between 48 or 24 hours. It was very, very quick. Like, people were running there to get their money quick, fast, in a hurry. So another thing that we need to understand and realize would actually put this bank in this situation to begin with is that good old Cheeto man, Trump, his administration during his presidency rolled back a lot of the rules and regulations and restrictions that was put into place by the Obama-Biden administration back in 2008 when that recession was going on. So when Trump and them came into office, there was some restrictions that they said, you know what, these rules do not apply anymore. We're going to lift up a little bit so the banks can have a little bit more freedom to do what they want. And that freedom caused SVP their collapse. So now I want to get into what is the impact. If you follow me on Instagram, you may have already heard my thought on this, but to me, in all honesty, I feel like these are like rich people problems. And I'm not saying that the regular person in some shape or form was not impacted by this, but the type of issues that are going on and the type of money that is being lost, the everyday, regular day person is not really impacted in that type of way. So again, for context, the FDIC covers up to $250,000 of the depositors, us, our money, if for whatever reason our bank was to collapse or there was some funny issue going on with our money in the bank. Now, that is very important to realize because I believe it was like over 50% of Americans don't even have $500 or so put aside to address an unexpected emergency. So a lot of us would be okay if our bank was to face some type of similar situation because a lot of us just don't have that type of money or capital laying around. So we wouldn't be impacted in a way that these companies were. So for example, in my notes here, companies like Roblox and Etsy only had access to 250K at first when this whole thing happened. So Roku was one of the companies that was very candid about their numbers. So they had about 487 million banked with SVP, which was about 26% of their revenue. So when this happened, 487 million compared to 250,000 insurance coverage, those numbers just don't add up. So that put them in a very risky situation. And so, in other words, companies like Etsy, what was happening is that they were delaying on actually paying out their sellers who, have stores on their platform. Now that may impact a regular everyday person who is on Etsy and they're selling their own products and they're not getting their, money back out in time because Etsy money is tied up in this whole SVB situation. So I do see how, to a certain extent, some of us regular day folk could be impacted, but on a grand scheme of things, this just wasn't our battle. Now, I don't have any articles kind of confirming this, but this was my hypothesis, just kind of looking from my research and what I have been observing. I do feel like this is a domino effect of what has been happening in the tech industry. There has been massive job loss. Instagram/Facebook just announced that they will not be doing the bonus reels Reels and Instagram bonuses. They've cut that program. And then also I just feel like, again, with this particular industry, there's just a lot of stuff that is going on that's impacting this sector in a negative way financially. And so I do feel like with the SVP, which is kind of like the icing on the cake, but this sector as a whole has really just experienced a huge domino downward effect after this whole, out of pandemic, post-pandemic life, where people are opening up and, not so, techie focused. And so there was a lot of investments and a lot of money that these tech companies put into their products and services that is kind of backfiring on them in a sense, which we see happen with SVP. So what can you and I learn from SVP? The first thing that we can learn is do not panic, prepare. And I mean prepare in a way. I thought it was so ironic that this high-techy bank did not have a cushion or some type of an emergency set aside to make sure that their customers were protected from a situation like this. And that's the very basic 101 financial literacy rule, is to build your emergency savings. And the simple fact that they did not have that in place was very comical to me, and just kind of like, I may be onto something here. But the very basic fundamental of managing your money is you want to build your emergency fund for any unexpected mishaps that may come up. The second thing that we can learn is diversify your portfolio. The majority of SVP investments was all in Treasury bonds, which is a very risky, not really safe way to kind of manage your money on that scale, especially all of the capital that they were working with. So for us, the everyday person, if we are getting to investing, we want to make sure that we have a plethora or a balance when it comes to our investment strategy. The basic saying is you don't want to put all of your eggs in one basket. And that is initially what happened with SVP. So we want to make sure in our financial journey and in our financial plan that we are avoiding a very basic mistake like that. The third thing that we can learn is cash will always be king. It is important to have some form of cash on hand. In addition to your emergency money being put aside and saved, you want to make sure that you actually have hard cash available to you to address anything that may come up, or just to be able to have on your persons to be able to spend when necessary. Having everything online right now may not be the smartest or safest thing to do, but just for your basic necessity and needs, sometimes having that hard cash available is very essential and important. And then last but definitely not least, do not be ashamed of your financial situation. I feel like this was the biggest lesson that I've learned from SVP. We feel like these high tech, high super financial people have it all together, when in reality, we may be a little bit more ahead knowledge-wise than they are. And so I think it's so important that we do not look at our financial situations or even other people's financial situations and judge ourselves or feel ashamed about where we are or what we're doing or even mistakes that we're making. So I want you to, be more gentle on yourself on your journey, and realize that even if you don't have it figured out, there's a lot of people, surprisingly, that don't have it figured out either. Overall, I am not worried about my bank or what's happening with my money in my banking system. Like I said, a lot of the banks are FDIC insured. And so double check with your bank to make sure that your bank is covered. And again, that covers up to $250,000. I'm aiming for our financial independence, but I'm not quite there yet. So I'm good, and I'm pretty sure the majority of this and you all watching, you're good too. So if you are panicking or worried, or there was just a lot of, fear-monger information out there, I generally, in my opinion, do not feel like we have anything to worry about. I am not a financial advisor. I am not a credit advisor. This is not financial advice. This is just my rickety-go opinion, the little black girl on the internet talking about money. So, this is not financial advice, but I, hope that you found this video helpful and informative. I encourage you to do the research. There was a lot of new terms that I learned that I am going to include in a blog post that I've kind of like summed up for this video down in the description box, so that you can kind of go back and read and take notes if you need to. But just take this as a learning lesson, and I don't think we have much to worry about. Again, I think this is rich folk problems. So until next time, please remember to dream